Thanks for staying with us. Now, in a statement, the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Police, Ian Cameron, says he has received information that the SAPS Forensic Science Laboratory division is facing a crisis as the DNA backlog persists. According to Cameron, the backlog exceeds 140,000 cases. And this is not the first time we hear about the crisis and efforts to bring the numbers down. So what could be the delay? Let's speak now to toxicology expert, Dr. Gerhard Verdoorn. Thank you so much and good evening to you. These numbers are quite staggering and it really is a threat to an effective criminal justice system.
Yes, absolutely. When I heard the figures, I was horrified because if I think about the magnitude of the numbers, it seems to me as if it is an insurmountable task ahead of the forensic laboratory, and whether those will ever be able to be worked through and to bring them forward so that justice can be served in all investigations, I'm not too sure that is possible in the current scenario.
And you're describing it as insurmountable. Is it because of resources, finances? What could be going on?
It's a culmination of different factors. Now, we've heard from Ian Cameron that this has been going on for a number of years. And I know I'm involved in many of the investigations where you've got a murder or a culpable homicide or a chemical situation, and we don't get the result from the toxicology labs or from the DNA laboratories because they're just overloaded. So there's a human resource problem. Not enough human resources, not enough equipment not serviced and properly maintained, and not enough of the chemicals and reagents required to do the forensic analysis for the DNA. So the only way to overcome the problem is for the Minister of Safety and Security to put the foot down, go in and put in a team of people to bring the situation under control, because the question that we all ask as South African citizens, where is the justice going to be served if you don't get the hardcore evidence? Because you cannot walk into a court of law and make an allegation against the possible perpetrator if you don't have that solid evidence.
Yeah,
so it needs resources. It needs the resources in terms of human resources, machinery, infrastructure, and also then the chemicals and the money to pay for all these analysis to be conducted.
And Dr. One wonders, because as you say, we've been speaking about this for a number of years now and the impact that this is having on a number of cases. But one would then say, so if it is an issue of resources, it is an issue of personnel and all of that, is it because there's a lack of commitment from maybe what you're hearing, or is there something else at play here? Because one wonders, if it's known that you need personnel, you need the money and all of that, why not just put it there?
I think there's a lack of political leadership in the country at all levels. I work with state departments all over the country, and some of them are excellent, some of them are struggling, some of them you battle with. And our police, I believe, our police system is overburdened with the magnitude of crime in the country. And I'm talking about serious crimes here like rape, murder, robbery, serious vehicle accidents where you get body parts that have to be analyzed. And you cannot expect the police to operate in this vacuum of leadership. So the leadership needs to come forward and give the police the proper resources. And I again reiterate, it's about the expertise that they need to bring into the forensic department. So you need to have people that are qualified in chemistry and DNA and forensic science to be able to do the job, first of all. They need to have proper working equipment, because if a machine goes down, for example, an HPLC or a PCR machine goes down, it has to be serviced, and very often they have to bring the experts from overseas to come and service the machine, so that costs a lot of money. So there needs to be a slush fund available to forensics, so that when something goes down, or they need equipment, or they need reagents, or they need to bring in some human capital on a short-term contract to help them work through these things, that needs to be done. But that is not at the level of the Commission of Police. That is at the level of the ministry. So the ministry needs to come up and assist our police force to get the right resources, to be able to say, we're going to sit down from day number one, we're going to work through these cases as fast as we can to bring some order into the system and to bring these cases to justice, because without the proper evidence, you cannot bring the cases to justice.
And one cannot even imagine the crisis that also unfolds in the pathology services if there's such a backlog.
No, the backlog is horrendous. I know I'm working together with the police and with the Justice Department, even with private investigations and private prosecutions, where we just cannot get the evidence to come to the fore. And I'm talking only about the chemical analysis of toxins. I'm not even talking about the DNA in serious cases like the murders. So we are sitting sometimes with cases 3, 4, 5 years where we can't get the evidence out. And my question is then, the families of the people that were killed by whatever means, whether it was an accident or a murder case or culpable homicide, how do they feel? And I think our government has failed our normal people in bringing justice to real crimes that are affecting all our people. Doesn't matter what nationality you are, doesn't matter what your cultural background is, doesn't matter about your income. We all need the same justice to be served to all of us. And if the police can't do it for us, we have no other way to go.
And justice is quite critical. And I wonder if I can pick your brain on this one, because if we've been talking about this for years, several interviews being done about what needs to be done here, promises being made that we are trying our level best to ensure that we're bringing the number of, the cases that need to be analyzed as far as DNA is concerned down. One would then ask, is the state, in your view, still able to carry out this function, or does there need to be help involved from possibly the private sector?
No, I think the state is incapable of going through this crisis on their own. So, like in my case, I work in the pesticide sector and the chemical sector, and we make offers to the department of whichever department to go and help out there. Now, in the case of forensics, we have private laboratories that can do the work. So there needs to be a hand extended from the government or the state towards the private laboratories and ask them, please come and help us. But remember one thing, these are private concerns. They work on an income and they work on a profit they need to make to sustain themselves. So, and many of the laboratories tell me, we don't want to do work for the government because the government doesn't pay on time or they never pay whatsoever. So there needs to be a change in the attitude from the government towards the private sector to say, the private sector very often has the expertise. But like in any case, the private sector expects to be paid on time for the services they render. And if they do that and they extend their hand and they bring them in on contract to help work through the backlog, it can certainly bring a lot of relief for the police to be able to work through the massive backlog and come to a level playing field for where they can start afresh and with their own people that work in the police. And believe me, I think the police have some experts in the Department of Forensics. So, but we need the hand to be extended towards the private sector and ask them to come in the system and be duly paid. If our government could spend money on the failed state-owned enterprises, why can't we get 100 million rand going into a slush fund to help the forensic department? These people are terribly important because without them, you cannot bring justice to a case. And as a family member or as a civil society person, I always ask the question, if something happens to my family, where do I run to get justice? If the police can't help me, I've got nowhere else to go. And I'm even working now with companies or families that do private investigations at enormous cost to themselves because they can't get anything out of our police force because our police force is under severe stress with all the crime. And you heard now about the backlog of all the forensics. So we need to get the private sector in a public-private partnership with the state and with the government to help them to work through the backlog, to at least alleviate the pressure on the police and to bring justice to the cases so the family can get closure on whatever crime was committed.
Definitely want to look at an even deeper level, but thank you so much for getting us started on this conversation. Do appreciate your time this evening. That was toxicology expert Dr. Gerhard Verdoorn.